Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Well, we are here, and we got some show for you today. I mean, we had some blockbuster shows the last few days, and in the studio with us, we have three winners. We have Governor David Paterson. We have the GOP chairman of New York, Ed Cox, and Governor Pataki, George Pataki. Well, guys, and Rita Cosby, of course.
Yeah, I'm always a winner. I'm always a winner, but I agree with you. We have three winners.
And what the heck is going on? I don't know anymore. It looks like, it's just a strong rumor that Kamala Harris is going to pick Josh Shapiro.
Pennsylvania, of course, governor.
Pennsylvania,
yep.
for vice president, but it's not sure yet.
I think somebody else. I'm
with Rita. I think somebody else.
Well, I mean, if he picks Josh Shapiro, then she's a black. She gets the black vote. He's a Jew, a Jewish vote. And she's part Bombay Indian. You get the Indian vote. You get the California vote. You get the Pennsylvania vote.
It's not quite that simple. I don't mean to throw cold water on your analysis.
That's 1.4 billion Indians.
Not in the United States, John. and John, as you well know, people don't vote exclusively ethnically. You have people in both parties who are loyal to the positions of their parties, and it doesn't follow that because of her background, she's going to get those votes. She has to earn those votes by saying the right thing and doing the right thing.
Here's who I think, and I'm just going to say it. I think Mark Kelly. I think the senator from Arizona, Gabby Gifford's husband, he's an astronaut. He would help her on the border because, boy, is she vulnerable on that one.
Totally agree with you.
But she's never going to get the Arizona people.
Well, you know what? She'll get border.
Just to add to the conversation, people vote for the president, not for the vice president.
Can we say for the record, Governor Pataki said he agrees with me.
I totally agree with you, Rita. Clearly the best choice for the Democrats for Kamala would be Mark Kelly.
I agree.
And I hope she picks somebody else.
Wait a second, Rita. I believe that a former speaker, Newt Gingrich, is on. Would you bring him in?
Absolutely. We have the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Newt, your thoughts, Mr. Speaker. First off, let's get to what we're talking about. Who do you think Kamala may pick? There's rumors it may be Josh Shapiro. We have other names. What do you think?
Well, I think that if she thought her party could take the stress, that Shapiro would be the most logical candidate, because if he can help her carry Pennsylvania, despite her deep opposition to fracking and guaranteed unemployment in Western Pennsylvania, he would put her a long way towards being really competitive if she could add Pennsylvania to her states. I think it's more likely that she'll pick Mark Kelly. I think it helps a little bit in Arizona, but it gives her a fighter pilot astronaut whose wife as a congresswoman was shot. So he has a remarkable story to tell, and it would be a pretty powerful balance to J.D. Vance, and would in a sense balance her off, because he is in some ways he's dramatically further towards the center than Harris, who's a San Francisco radical and who's going to have, I think, a difficult time disowning her entire career.
Newt Gingrich, the other issue, too, of course, today is what's going on in Congress. We saw Netanyahu speak. Boy, was it unbelievably powerful. And I thought about this moment as I was watching him, and you have seen so many great speeches there. You've done many great speeches there in Congress. And he said, these pro-Hamas protesters that were standing outside the Capitol, and we're going to be talking to Chief Shell, who's right in the thick of it from the NYPD in a moment, they are useful idiots. And anybody who supports them, shame on them. It was like a real leader speech. And I thought, boy, if we had an American president that currently gave the same type of speech, things would be a lot better.
It was shocking how, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Governor Patterson.
It was shocking how many quotable lines were in that speech and how absolutely correct they were. And if you heard the speech and didn't react any other way than those protesters were, then he called them for what they really are.
Yeah, and by the way, Newt, you probably saw a number of Democrats were not clapping when he called out the useful idiot protesters. They sat while he said that.
Well, of course. Look, a large part of the Democratic Party are useful idiots. I mean, why would they applaud their own description? And anybody who refuses to understand that the official policy of Hamas is that not a single Jew will remain. Now, think about that. Not a single Jew will remain. That's their, so when the Secretary of State goes over to negotiate, does he say, well, could we have like 10? I mean, would 20 be too many? I mean, this is insane. When you're dealing with a terrorist operation who openly states they want to destroy you, the correct answer is defeating them. This is what Franklin Delano Roosevelt meant when he said unconditional surrender in dealing with Nazi Germany. He didn't want to negotiate a truce with Nazi Germany. He wanted to annihilate it because as long as it existed, it would be evil. Well, you have to be prepared to either tolerate constant warfare or to break the capacity to fight of groups that are terrorist groups. And this includes Iran, whose parliament routinely chants death to America and death to Israel, and whose Ayatollah has said on public television just 3 months ago that death to America is not a slogan, it's a policy.
And I want to remind everybody that the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, which Iran paid the Houthis to close down, President Biden has done zero on opening it up again.
Right. Look, when you have appeasement-oriented left-wingers who are afraid to face reality, afraid to face the facts, afraid to use power, the world becomes more dangerous. And it's going to keep getting more dangerous. It's a really big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Newt Gingrich also, and a little bit from now, we are going to hear the President of the United States addressing the country. It's the first time he has spoken since he was pushed out. And today, we heard from Corinne Jean-Pierre, and she was asked by reporters, granted, she's, doesn't want to usurp her boss, but she said, he had nothing to do with health. There's nothing. He just did it for the good of the country. What do you think we're going to hear tonight?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, he's not going to get up and say, Nancy Pelosi and the others bullied me into resigning. That doesn't work. So I think he's probably going to say that I've done everything I could for the country. I love the country. I wish the country well. And I strongly endorse Kamala Harris as my successor. And we have to do everything we can to stop Donald Trump and the bad guys. I mean, it would be something like that. In a way, it's a kind of a farewell address, which normally occurs at the end of a presidency. But in some ways, this is the end of his presidency. The power is now shifting to Kamala. And for all practical purposes, she is the leader of the government now. He's not.
And Newt Gingrich, Ed Cox has a question.
Look, it's clear it's going to be a very political speech. He even made his State of the Union one long political speech. And when he claims time, supposedly for something governmental, again, this is going to be a very tough political speech.
I would think so. I mean, plus, he's got to be very, very angry. And so rather than take his anger out on the people who pushed him out of office, he's going to take his anger out on Republicans and on Trump, and maybe to some extent on Netanyahu.
Yeah, you know what? Also, Newt Gingrich, too. We keep hearing from the Democrats, and you've heard it a lot from Kamala and others, saying, Trump is a threat to democracy. And I'm thinking, what have you guys been doing the last few days?
Yeah, I mean, this was pure. This was a coup. We've never seen anything like it in American history. You had a group get together led, I think, largely by the San Francisco super boss, Nancy Pelosi. They brought more and more and more pressure to bear. Then you had Biden collapse. And as soon as Biden collapsed, they pivoted. And lo and behold, the San Francisco vice president suddenly becomes the Democratic nominee. So they have managed with her having no competition, no votes. She has never in her career carried a single precinct for president, and yet now she's the nominee because the powers that be are putting her in. And it's something like, and according to the Democracy Project poll, something like 60% of the American people, including a lot of Democrats, believe this is essentially undemocratic and wrong. And I think it's certainly not the American way of doing things. And it's ironic that after all the speeches on democracy, that in fact it's the Democrats who've shown us what this was a coup worthy of Putin or Xi Jinping. I mean, they must look with great admiration on Pelosi's ability to manipulate the system and bring down the president of the United States.
Well, Newt Gingrich, thank you very much, and thank you for coming on. And Newt, we love you, and thank you for your honesty and integrity.
Glad talking to you.
Thank you. And Rita, let's go to Washington. I understand NYPD Chief Shell is on, and he's going to tell us what's going on. Are there riots? What's going on in Washington?
Absolutely. Chief Shell, you are right in the thick of it there with the protests. Fill us in. What's going on?
All right, so right now I'm on Delaware Avenue and Constitutional Avenue outside the Capitol building. I'm standing with 6 of my fine NYPD officers and a couple of Capitol Police. One team today holding it down in D.C. and not allowing the 10,000-plus protesters to get close to this Capitol building. I think we demoralized them a little bit, and they pretty much left.
Wow. So you were battling about 10,000. It seemed very heated, too, at times. You guys did a great job. How emotional were these people? One of the things I saw, Chief Shell, a lot of the people there was some carrying Hamas flags. What did you see?
Nothing out of the norm that we haven't seen in New York City. Just a lot of noise, a lot of horrible language. But when you put a bunch of cops together as one team and surround an area, you stand tall and you send a message that you're not coming in here, it's pretty powerful. They get upset. They voice their opinion, which is fine. Even though it's hateful and it's wrong, it's their First Amendment. But at the end of the day, they left here. We had no major incidents. We got the job done for D.C. Capitol.
Chief John Shell, I'm glad you're on our side, and come back to New York real fast.
I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go out for a little dinner tonight. If you guys don't mind, I'll come back tomorrow, I promise.
That's a deal.
The Capitol Grill has good steaks.
Hey, John, we're going on a long time now. I still don't have my own private song for this show.
We're working on it.
Get one.
We're going to work on it. Chief, thank you
so much.
Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Let's now go to Mike Lawler, Congressman Lawler, to give us an analysis of how Netanyahu's speech is.
Yep, Congressman Lawler, you were right there as Netanyahu spoke. What was your reaction?
Look, I think it was a extremely strong and pointed speech. He even went so far as to call out some of my colleagues here in America and some of the pro-Hamas agitators, calling them useful idiots for Iran, but also making the point about how important the American-Israeli relationship is, our shared values, our shared heritage, but the importance of Israel as the only democracy in the Middle East, fighting back against Iran and its terror network, and standing up for America. And obviously, making the point, as Churchill did, give us the tools and we'll win. And obviously, making the point that they need them now and they need them fast so they can bring this war to a close and eliminate the threat from Hamas and bring the hostages home. And I think that obviously was extremely important. We had hostage families here.
Yeah, that was powerful. Wow.
8 Americans are still being held hostage, 3 deceased, 5 living. I've met with these families numerous times. They testified yesterday before the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and just met with the Prime Minister and Speaker Johnson after the speech. It's extremely important that all Americans remember the fact that we still have hostages being held, as these crazy pro-Hamas agitators were protesting the speech at Union Station ripping down American flags from the flagpole, raising Palestinian flags, and burning the United States flag on the ground. It just speaks volumes to where the Democratic Party has gone. You had, nearly 80 representatives and senators boycotting the speech, including Vice President Harris, who normally would preside over a joint session of Congress along with the Speaker. And she chose not to be here today.
Yeah,
and really just speaks volumes to where the Democratic Party is.
Let's go to Governor Pataki. He has a question.
Yeah, Mike Lawler, first, you're my congressman, and I'm proud to have you as my congressman. Keep fighting.
Thanks,
What you just announced is what I was going to ask. You said 80 approximately Democrats boycotted Netanyahu's speech, including Vice President Harris. Were there many who actually sat on their hands or refused to acknowledge Netanyahu's very strong speech? And particularly, he said one thing that really struck me, that Israel's fight is our fight, Israel's enemies are our enemies, and Israel's victory is our victory. What was the reaction of the Democrats who actually had the gall to show up when he was saying this?
Look, we had great members like Josh Gottheimer and Richie Torres who were standing up in support of the Prime Minister's comments and of the U.S.-Israel relationship. And then you had Democrats like Jerry Nadler, who was holding a book about Netanyahu and at points refusing to applaud, sitting there, with a scowl on his face. Schumer sitting there at points with a scowl on his face. Even Hakeem Jeffries giving tepid applause at times. I mean, it's remarkable what has been allowed to occur within the Democratic Party to appease a growing base of lunatics who support Hamas. And as I thought it was phenomenal that the Prime Minister called it out and said, we have people who are supporting Hamas, who are using the talking points of Hamas in spewing anti-Israeli bigotry and hatred. And they are useful idiots for Iran. And that really, to me, is pointed and it's correct. And I think he also made an extremely important point in talking about how Israel is prosecuting this war and the care that they have taken not only to provide humanitarian relief and aid, but to mitigate civilian casualties. And despite the Hamas Ministry of Health's talking points, Israel has taken great care in a war that is being conducted in an urban center.
Yeah, and by the way, he got to that. Absolutely. Congressman Lawler, I want to make sure we get in Governor Patterson real quick.
Congressman, my favorite part of the speech was when he talked about Rafah and how there were very few, there were 1,203 Hamas members killed there. There were 24 other people killed accidentally because of an accident. And when you look at those types of numbers, they're lower than in almost any other conflict, as he pointed out. And he quoted the people who'd done the research. I was blown away by that.
I thought that was extremely important, Governor, when he said that, because everybody has been led to believe that Israel is indiscriminately killing innocent Palestinian civilians. And it's just not true. And I think that was an important point for him to make on the rostrum to Congress, especially with people like Rashida Tlaib sitting in there holding a sign up calling him a war criminal. I think it was important for Americans to hear that. I hope that people heard it loud and clear and understand that Israel, the difference here is Israel is trying to eliminate terrorists and the threat that is posed to the state of Israel. Hamas indiscriminately targeted innocent men, women, children, and babies. That is the difference. This is a battle of good versus evil. There is no moral equivalency here. And the United States needs to stand shoulder to shoulder with the state of Israel.
Yeah. And tell that to all your Democratic colleagues in there, too, because there was some gray in there today, and it was shameful.
Yeah, let's pray for America, because we're all on America's side.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be about Democrats. It shouldn't be about Republicans. It should be about America.
Yeah, and fighting together. Yeah. That is the key, 1,000%.
Look, our nation is built on Judeo-Christian values. There's a shared heritage between the United States and Israel. The United States has been Israel's closest ally for 76 years, the first country, the first nation to recognize the state of Israel 11 minutes after its founding. Israel, we have no greater friend than Israel, and they no greater friend than us. And that I think is the important takeaway from
Congressman Mike Lawler, thank you so much. And we're going to have to go to a hard break right now. Thank you, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Congressman.
And let's go to a break. And when we come back, we're coming back with the CEO of Goya, Robert Unanue, and he is very much concerned about what's happening to women and children coming through the borders.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Cats and Cosby. Well, so much happening, especially happening at the border related to human trafficking and so much more. And somebody who is fighting the good fight against human trafficking in a big way is one of the greatest CEOs in this country. He is, of course, the head of Goya Foods, which, by the way, is the largest Hispanic-owned company in the United States. And one of the great patriots that we know and love so much, Bob Unanue. Bob, it's so great to have you here on the show.
Oh, Rita and John, it's such an honor to be on. You know, incredible guests you've had on, and all the things that are happening around the world. It's very precarious times. And, you know, we're 6 months away in the interim from electing another president into the White House. And from my perspective, we can't get Donald Trump into the White House soon enough. You know, the economy, you're seeing transportation costs skyrocketing because of the unrest in the Strait of Aden, the Panama Canal. The economy is just I heard today that the average person it costs them $20,000 more since the Biden-Harris administration is in office. And, you know, you go to the situation, the wars around the world, Israel, what is happening today, it's terrible. And now you have, President Harris, who's running for president, as a woman, our border czar, who quite honestly, I don't think cares very much about women, being a woman herself, because 75% of the people trafficked are women. 25% are children. And the biggest victim of trafficking are the Latinos. And so last year you had a whistleblower from HHS ORR, which is the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Tara Lee Rodas testified that the U.S. is the middleman in bringing children into this country. They're handing them off to sponsors. The amount of money in the industry for trafficking and drugs is the biggest industry in the world. But kids are being handed off, sold, basically, to sponsors. 20, 30, 40 kids sent to one address, sponsors using multiple addresses to bring children in, to sell them for sex, for slavery, for body parts, quite honestly. And we're not, instead of doing something about it, we want to accelerate it. Javier Becerra said, the Secretary of Health and Human Services said, Henry Ford would be embarrassed. We're not bringing these kids in fast enough. And why? Because we're profiting off of the sale of these children. It's despicable. This country's moving away from God. If we're complicit in this, it's horrific. And why are we doing this? For money, for power. Like the genie said to Aladdin, never drink from the cup of money or power. You'll never be satisfied. We want to sell our kids, and we want to bring people in so we can vote and stay in power. And it's despicable. I tell you what, there's so many things that can happen from here until January when a new president is in the office, and we are in a very precarious situation.
Bob, what do you think President Biden is going to say tonight in the speech?
I tell you what, I'm not sure. I heard Newt Gingrich wasn't sure either, and if he doesn't know, I certainly don't know. Yeah. But the Francis Scott Key Bridge took 4 years to build. It's in Baltimore. A ship knocked it down in less than a minute. And I believe what Donald Trump built in 4 years was destroyed in a moment. It takes a lot of love and talent and time to build. We destroy in a minute. The Jose Marti, the Cuban poet, said there are men who are born to love and create, others to hate and destroy. And what this administration has done, quite honestly, is hate and destroy. They can try and put a good spin on it, but they undid what Donald Trump built with the executive orders. The first day they came out with 50 or so executive orders that undid everything. It undid the border. They declared a war on the Keystone Pipeline. They declared a war on fuel, and you know a lot about that and many things. They declared the Green New Deal, which is putting a tremendous load on this country. 59% of immigrants, illegals coming into this country are on welfare. So we need to work more than half a day so that someone else doesn't work. My grandfather came into this country looking for prosperity. He didn't come with his hand out. We cannot survive if we have to work. The few of us have to work to maintain people that come into our homes, come into our country, and just to take from us.
And Bob, before we let you go, you got a new book coming out. Give us a preview. We saw a little bit of that. By the way, your speech at the RNC, I saw it. You were awesome.
Well, thank you, Rita. Well, the book is Blessed Donald J. Trump and the Spiritual War. How, we're in a spiritual war in this country. I believe we're moving away from God. But 4 years ago, I said we were blessed. That word came onto my lips from the Holy Spirit. We were blessed with President Trump. And this book is out, and I believe that, he's been chosen to help lead this country closer to God, to bring us to prosperity and strength. And it is amazing because I was at the convention, and you could feel the presence, God's presence, the presence of hope, and the protection. I mean, if 1/4 inch, and it was basically an open shot to the president because we did not protect him. But who was protecting the president, the previous president of the United States, was the Holy Spirit. Forget about the CIA, the Secret Service, FBI, local law enforcement. They didn't do the job of protection. But the Holy Spirit is the one who put his hand on Donald Trump and protected him.
I believe in that, too. Well, thank you, Bob Unanaway. We have to go to some hot news sponsored by a company I know. Thank you so much.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And sponsored by the great company Goya, spearheaded by the great Bob Unanaway. Here are some of the headlines. The war in Gaza is a battle between barbarism and civilization. That's what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said just a few hours ago while he was delivering a powerful address to Congress. He stressed that the U.S. and Israel must stand together against Iran's access of terror. FBI Director Wray delivered testimony today concerning the assassination attempt against former President Trump on July 13th. He said that the 20-year-old shooter flew a drone over the site prior to the rally. And he also said that the shooter searched out how far Lee Harvey Oswald was from JFK on November 1963. We're going to be talking with Senator Ron Johnson about some other stunning details. And finally, President Biden will address the country from the Oval Office tonight. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be his first on-camera appearance since he dropped out or was forced out of the 2024 presidential race. And those are the great Goya hot headlines of the day.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And welcome back here to Katz and Cosby. Well, Netanyahu really threw it to the protesters today outside of Capitol Hill, saying anybody who supports them and them are useful idiots. Joining us now to talk about Netanyahu's speech and those who didn't show up for the speech is Michael Goodwin, the great Pulitzer Prize winning columnist of the New York Post. Michael, first off, what did you make of his speech, of Netanyahu's speech? I thought it was terrific.
Well, Rita, yes. I think it was crafted just for this moment where you have these protests going on in the college campuses, and which will resume presumably in the fall if the war is not over in Gaza. And, of course, the Democratic Party, which is beginning to pull away from Israel in major ways. And the fact that Kamala Harris was not there, that Joe Biden probably wouldn't have been there anyway, but certainly the absence of the Democratic leadership, of the leadership of the United States, I think was an obvious impediment to what Netanyahu came to do, which is to preach to America that, as he said, our enemy is your enemy. And that's something that the left refuses to accept. It's something that conservatives understand implicitly. But the Democrats, driven by this progressive agenda where everything is about race and ancestry, and therefore Israel is a white colonizing nation, though, as Netanyahu showed with the people he singled out, Israel is home to many Arabs, 2 million Arab citizens, as well as Jews from Arab nations, Druze, Christians. So this idea that Israel is a kind of monochrome culture and population is just not true. And so there's so much ignorance that he was trying to attack in this one speech. And unfortunately, the people who really needed to hear it weren't there.
You know what? Michael Goodwin,
they
too.
weren't listening.
Yeah, they weren't listening. You know what? I was astounded. I was watching some of the media interviewing some of the protesters outside there on Capitol Hill. And one of them actually said, a number of them said, well, we're here protesting Israel. They said, well, what about Hamas? You're sitting there carrying a Hamas flag. Oh, well, Hamas didn't really have anything to do with it. It's Israel we're talking. Are you kidding me? They have no sense of understanding.
No, and that's that whole thing. Remember early on, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Okay, which river and which sea are you talking about? I don't know. I mean, they told us to sing this chant, right? I mean, so there is this kind of, oh, you look so good in your kafia. Oh, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that flag? Gee, you're going to be at the tent tonight? I mean, in other words, it became a cool thing to do to hate Israel. I mean, that's the sad part of this. It's out of ignorance, but it became cool, like a fashion statement to wear your kafia. I mean, this is insane. This is like children playing grown-ups in a way that they simply have no understanding of what they're talking about and the implications. As Netanyahu said, you are Iran's useful idiots.
Yeah, it was such a powerful statement.
They are praising you. Right, and Hamas has praised the demonstrations. Can you imagine? I mean, Rita, think back to Vietnam. There was only one person who I ever heard of waving a Viet Cong flag, and that was Jane Fonda, right? Everybody else was against the war, against America's involvement, but we weren't rooting for the other team. I mean, that's what's so astonishing here. These are people who are supporting terrorists against our ally. I mean, how is this not treason, if not in a legal sense, at least in a logical sense?
Yeah, I agree. It's shocking. Ed Cox.
And for our great Democratic ally in the Mideast, Israel, this is their time of the greatest peril since the Yom Kippur War. They're being attacked on four sides. Hamas attacked them. Hezbollah with their 150,000 high-grade missiles. The Iraqi resistance is now sending in drones. And, of course, the Houthis have just attacked them from the south.
All paid for by Iran.
And Iran is on the verge of having a nuclear, enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon. This is a time when they do need America's support.
Absolutely. And this is, as Netanyahu said, Iran is after not just Israel. Israel is sort of the Donald Trump in the equation. It's just in the way, right? What it really wants is the West. It wants to eliminate America. It wants to defang the Western allies. It's an Islamist state. It wants to spread its, not just Islam, but its peculiar brand of Shia Islam. And it will, many of the Hamas people are Sunni. They're Sunnis for hire. They're like the gunmen for the mullahs. They're all stupid to play a role in this advancement of Iran's determination to spread its tentacles throughout the region and around the world.
You know, one of the things, Michael, I thought that Netanyahu did really well, too, was he said these people are not, to your point, not just, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, they're anti-American. One of the most shocking moments, I think, that I've seen in a long time, Netanyahu praised the students from University of North Carolina who protected the flag during the protests. Remember, during the pro-Palestinian protests?
Sure.
Said, I want to praise them. They protected the American flag. And there were actually, and I'm just going to say it because it was disgraceful, there were actually a number of members of Congress who sat down, who were not clapping for protecting the American flag.
Rita, I want to say something. All these people all the people that took pictures of all the January 6th people, I hope the FBI and whoever else agency is taking pictures of these people burning the American flag, carrying the Palestinian flag, and make sure when these people apply for citizenship, turn your finger down.
Bravo.
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, John, there are two standards of justice in our country, and we know that, but we don't accept that. And yet the FBI is not going to come to the rescue of America, I'm afraid. That is very, very sad, because 99.9% of the FBI, other than the ones that are controlled by the Biden Department of Justice, the political appointees, I believe 99.9% of them are loyal, patriotic Americans.
Yeah, I agree. Good, hardworking. You're right.
Governor Patterson, what say you?
Well, I thought, Michael, if we get back to the protesters for a minute, and you described it as like the cool thing to do. I think that what technology and the internet and all of this activity that young people are around all the time now has gotten them to the point where they actually see the legitimate protests for civil rights in the 60s and even against the Vietnam War, whichever way you stood on it. They were real. They were people who read, and they were people who had criticisms that even if you didn't agree with them, it was an issue that we talked about for years. And in this situation, it's like these people just think this is funny, and not knowing that they'd probably be the first to get killed if Hamas ever invaded this country.
That's right. Yeah, they don't appreciate their own culture. To be raised to hate your country, this is what the left has done, what the universities have done primarily. You don't really see working people out there. These are leftist elitists who have, probably they're the ones who have benefited most from the forgiveness of student loans because they got their graduate degrees in something that nobody would ever hire you for. There's no job market. But, the other thing, David, is it occurred to me at the Republican convention, Rita mentioned the flag and the UNC guys. The chants of USA, 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 you never hear that at a Democratic convention. Why is that? Do Democrats feel less strongly about America than do Republicans? Is that the division in this country now? One party loves and supports and wants to continue to America to fulfill its destiny, and the other country doesn't like America and wants to stop its progress and wants to make a far left turn. Is that a fair summation of the two parties? Because I'm beginning to think it is, and if it is,
we got a problem.
Then I'm not sure how the twain ever meets.
Michael Goodwin, thank you for calling in. We're going to have to go to another segment. Thank you so much for speaking out for America, and God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up after the break,
No,
we are
we're
going to
doing
be. You want to do Al D'Amato? We have Al D'Amato calling in.
Yes, let me do Al D'Amato.
Okay, perfect. Al D'Amato is calling in. John, you take it away.
Well, this is Senator Alphonse D'Amato, one of the greatest senators New York State has ever had. Alphonse D'Amato, what the heck is going on in Washington? Can you take a pulse on it?
It's impossible. It changes, and obviously now, I think the Democrats have a better chance at the presidency with Biden dropping out because people had become so concerned over his mental health, over his ability. So Kamala Harris improves their chances tremendously. That's number one. Number two, African Americans who are leaving in droves and women who are not happy, it gives them more of an opportunity to keep that vote. When I say them, it gives the Democrats. So I think it becomes a closer race. I still think that Trump has a very good opportunity of winning. He carries the battleground states. That's a winner for him. I think he can. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he picks the governor of Pennsylvania. That gives them an advantage. They carry Pennsylvania. But there are other critical states. And I think that the choice of Vance for vice president is very articulate, very capable, very youthful, has a lot of stamina, and he is going to be a terrific addition to the ticket. So I think he's a great pick. I think it's going to be a close race. I still think and hope that Trump will win. The only way Trump loses is Trump. If he gets on some of these crazy things and sticks to the script, the only person who can beat Trump is Trump when he goes off script. And otherwise, he's a winner. Stick to the major issues. Crime is an issue. The invasion of our country because of the lack of border security. And who was supposed to be the person running the border doing it? Kamala Harris. Well, what the hell has she done? Nothing. And what has the administration done? Nothing. And they can say, well, they didn't vote for our bill. Their bill wouldn't have done anything.
Well, Senator, we still have 100 days to go. This is going to be interesting, and we're going to have several discussions until then. Thank you for calling in, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Well, at the age of 86 and a half, he's still one smart guy. We're going to go to a break, and we're coming back with Senator Ron Johnson, and this is going to be the big story of the day. He helped save President Donald Trump's life, and you're going to find out why.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Lots of details on the shooting. And joining us now is Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. It was great to be with you at the RNC, Senator. And first, before we get into some of the details that came out today, President Trump is crediting you with saving his life because of the chart. Explain that, because it is unbelievable what happened.
Well, hello, Rita. Hello, John. Yeah, so obviously President Trump turned his head at just the last moment. I guess I would credit divine intervention. But the fact of the matter is, I gave him that chart. I was flying up to him, up to the Green Bay rally with him. I had a number of things I was discussing with him, but one of them was I showed them this chart that I've been developing as Chairman of Homeland Security since really about 2015. We've just been adding to this chart on a monthly basis the number of encounters that the Border Patrol have had on the southwest border. So he liked the chart. He said, hey, send that to my team. he's got a great team on the plane with him. He made a couple modifications himself to it, put some red arrows in it, changed some titles. He used it that day. He's been using it ever since, and is really, for whatever reason, he looked up at that chart at just the right moment, and rather than getting a bolt in the head, he took it in the ear. So it'll be an interesting footnote in history. But I would credit divine intervention before I'd credit myself.
Wow, that is such a powerful story. Senator Johnson, everybody's wondering, is there more to the story about the shooting? There are still so many unanswered questions. Do you think that maybe there's someone else or something else we're clearly missing here?
Well, again, you just can't explain this spectacular failure. It makes no sense. Everything you would think the Secret Service would do when it's protecting a former president, a presidential candidate, any protectee, they didn't do. So what my initial findings showed is that, first of all, the Secret Service did not show up at the 9 o'clock briefing that day. Again, if they're in charge, you would think they would have somebody there directing the county law enforcement and everybody participating in this, right? They weren't on the same communication channel. So the county, the local law enforcement, the SWAT and sniper teams were on different channels than the patrol officers, who were on different channels than the Secret Service. So if they're seeing something, rather than talking to each other, they've got to relay it through the Butler County Comm Center. So again, you would just assume that they would be doing these things. They didn't. And the fact that the director of Secret Service, and I was the FBI director, have not been forthright, transparent. Why haven't they been holding briefings on a daily basis? That's what happens with local tragedies, state tragedies. You have mayors, you have chiefs of police, you got governors come out, and they're keeping the public up to date. It's been pretty much radio silence out of federal officials, which is the way they always handle these things. That's not acceptable this time. So they are creating suspicion. They are allowing conspiracy theories to get developed and take hold because they're not being transparent. They're not being honest.
One of the things, too, Senator Ron Johnson, is also this encrypted messages that this guy, it seems like, people are saying, this 20-year-old kid from outside of Butler, Pennsylvania, but yet he was going into his phones and had 3 encrypted messages tied to 3 foreign countries. It's like, how does a 20-year-old kid have that?
Yeah, there's all kinds of information, again, bubbling up on the internet, some of it pretty darn credible. And so the FBI and Secret Service Department of Justice have to realize they're not the only people that have these kind of investigatory capabilities. They're not the ones that have access to all the information. This isn't like 1963 when we had one Zapruder film and you didn't have all this technology out there with people capable of using it. So they're doing themselves real harm. They're allowing theories to spread, true or untrue. They're the ones allowing it by not being honest and transparent.
George Pataki, Governor George
Senator,
Pataki.
this is George Pataki. Wisconsin's going to be a critical state from an electoral college standpoint. 4 years ago, there were grave concerns about Milwaukee and other places and the integrity of the election system. How confident are you, given the makeup of the Wisconsin Supreme Court these days, that election ballot integrity is going to be sufficient to make sure the result in Wisconsin is fair?
Well, Governor, we're in better shape than we were in 2020, where the left utilized COVID as an excuse to relax all controls or many controls over absentee ballots, which I think you're aware the Baker Carter Commission pointed to those absentee ballots as probably the greatest source of potential fraud. So what we've done, the Republican Party, is we've recruited over 5,000 poll workers. They get paid and trained, and we also filled all the poll observer shifts as well. So in 2022, during my very close reelection, Milwaukee County got their votes in and counted by 11 o'clock at night. That didn't occur in 2020. So we have eyes on the process. That gives me a fair amount of confidence. But we got a Democrat governor who refuses to sign the kinds of reforms to really restore confidence that no matter who wins, it's a legitimate result. So we're not all the way there yet. Our voter rolls have not been cleaned up. We still have something like 7.5 million on our voting rolls. Only 3.5 million are eligible. Why the Democrats won't allow us to clean those up? That's the $64,000 question. It sure appears Democrats want to make it easy to cheat. Republicans want to make it easy to vote, but almost impossible to cheat.
Ed Cox, New York State Chairman.
So, Ron, the follow-up on what the governor was asking you. It is a swing state, Wisconsin. There's now a presumptive nominee, a new one on the Democratic line. What's the impact? What's the difference between Harris and Biden with respect to swing state Wisconsin?
Well, the main difference is the media had turned on Biden. They couldn't defend him anymore. Now they're going to put Kamala Harris on a pedestal. She's the newest messiah. It's going to make us all puke, how the media is going to handle it. So it's really not us against Kamala Harris, the vice president. The drug or the borders are. It's us against the media, and they are a powerful force. So it's again. I thought we were way too confident at the convention in Milwaukee. Don't be. We've got to work our tails off. Take nothing for granted. This is going to be a tough fight.
Last question, Senator. Barbarism versus civilization. That's what Netanyahu said at today's congressional hearing.
It was a great speech. The prime minister is intelligent. He's articulate. He was forceful. I agree. The alliance between Israel and the U.S. is vital, and the prime minister did an excellent job of pointed out the barbarity of the acts. I mean, we sanitize this way too much. So he brought it down to the truth, the reality. He described it. It was a great speech, and he was very well received in the hall. From Republicans, even some Democrats, I think some Democrats sitting on their hands was pretty shameful.
Yeah, we were all watching that. That was an astounding moment.
Well, thank you, Senator Ron Johnson, your Homeland Security. I hope the American people are still stunned. They don't know what happened, and let's hope we were able to deliver the truth to them.
That's what I'm dedicated to do, uncovering and exposing the truth. It's my
Absolutely.
job.
Senator, great to talk with you again, and so great to see you.
And what do we all stand for? Truth,
justice,
and the American way. God bless America.